I used to believe the hospital was a place where people were saved, not selected for burial. Certainly not by the man who vowed to love me. Certainly not by the woman he once introduced as just my assistant. But the day I lay frozen inside my own body, unable to speak, unable to open my eyes, yet hearing every word, they stood beside me and discussed the shape of my coffin as casually as if they were picking curtains. The irony? The hospital thought they had turned the room camera off. They didn't. But I didn't know that then. I only knew this. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't tell the world that I was still inside myself. I had slipped into what the doctors called a temporary paralysis of the nervous system, a rare complication, a reversible condition. They thought I was sedated, asleep, unaware. I was aware of everything, the steady beeping of my monitors, the cold weight of the oxygen tubing, the smell of disinfectant, and then footsteps, familiar ones. My husband, Daniel, his voice was the next thing I felt, because when you cannot move, you feel sound. It vibrates through you like ripples through a frozen pond. Is she stable? He asked with no tremor of worry, no shaking breath, no grief, just irritation. A woman answered, heels clicking softly across the tile floor. His assistant, Eva. Stable enough, she said. But the doctor said her chances of waking fully are unpredictable. Could be hours, could be days. She paused. I felt her step closer, felt her presence hover over my bed. Then she whispered something that sliced through the air like a scalpel. We don't have days, Daniel. The lawyer needs the death certificate. You know that? I would have bolted upright if my muscles had belonged to me. The shock surged through me, my mind slamming against the cage of my still body. Death certificate. For me? Daniel exhaled sharply. Lower your voice. Why? She hissed. She can't hear us. Oh, but I could. I could hear every poisonous word. Daniel stepped so close I could smell his cologne, subtle, expensive, a scent I used to bury my face in when I hugged him. Now, it made my blood turn to ice. We agreed, he said. Once the paperwork is processed, the inheritance transfers. We just need the hospital to sign off. Inheritance, transfers. They weren't grieving my near death. They were waiting for it. Eva's voice softened. I called the funeral home. They said the coffin can be delivered tomorrow morning. But you need to choose the style? I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip the IV from my hand and the mask from my face and tell the world that these two were already planning my burial while my heart still beat. But my body remained stone. Show me the options, Daniel said. I heard the rustle of paper, the soft tapping of nails on a brochure. This one, Eva said. Mahogany, satin lining, classy, expensive, but you can afford it now. Daniel grunted. Fine, order it, like ordering takeout. A coffin. For me, my mind thrashed inside its prison. I tried to move even a finger, a toe, anything, but the paralysis held me like concrete. Eva leaned closer. I could feel her breath near my ear. It's almost over. Just one more night. Then she giggled. Gigi yelled, beside what they thought was my dying body. But after that, she whispered, we will finally be free. Free from me. My husband brushed her cheek. I could hear the faint sound of his wedding ring tapping her skin. Don't get sentimental, he murmured. We still need the doctor to finalize the report. Relax, she replied. I've already taken care of that. The nurses think she won't make it through the night. Daniel chuckled, a sound I had never heard from him before. A cold, hollow imitation of the warm laughter he once shared with me. And then Eva said something that nearly stopped my heart. After all, she looks peaceful, doesn't she? Like someone ready to let go. They both looked at me then. My eyelids remained closed, but I felt their gaze, two predators checking whether their prey still twitched. Daniel sighed. Let's go. We should check out the chapel too. Their footsteps faded. The door closed. And I lay there, trapped, tears forming behind eyes that could not open. They had chosen my coffin, and they planned to end me tonight. But what they didn't know, what they so LDNT know, was that the hospital camera they believed had been turned off was still running, still recording every word, every confession. And someone else was watching. The silence after they left was worse than their voices. At least when they were speaking, I knew where the danger lived. But when the door clicked shut, the room felt like a sealed coffin already lowered into the earth. Quiet, airless, final. My mind raced, clawing at every memory of Daniel, every sign I had ignored. The late night meetings that ended with perfume on his shirt. His sudden interest in my family's finances after my mother passed. The assistant he insisted was temporary, who somehow ended up having a drawer in his office. The way he held my shoulders too tightly the day I told him I was updating my will. I had thought I married a man, but I had actually married ambition wearing a charming mask. The monitors beside me beeped steadily, reminding me I was still here, alive, trapped, but alive. And if I was alive, there was still a chance. Somehow, some way. I forced myself to breathe evenly, to keep my heartbeat controlled. If a sudden spike alerted the nurses, Daniel might come back. And if he came back, no, I couldn't let him know I had heard everything. Minutes or hours passed, I couldn't tell. Time is different when your mind is sprinting, but your body is a locked door. Then, faintly, I heard the hallway shift, wheels rolling, gentle voices, metal trays, the nightly rhythm of the hospital. I prayed someone would enter. Anyone. A nurse checking vitals, a custodian, a student shadowing a doctor. I needed someone else to see me, to realize something was wrong, to untangle me from the invisible chains Daniel and Eva had wrapped around my future. The door creaked. A breath caught in my throat, even though no sound escaped. Soft footsteps approached. Lighter. Slower. Not Daniel, not Eva's, a nurse. Thank God. Good evening, sweetheart, she whispered, adjusting my blanket with a tenderness that made tears burn behind my unmoving eyelids. Let's take a look at your chart. She hummed quietly while checking my IV. Her voice felt like sunlight through a crack in a shutter. If only she knew I was awake. If only she could hear the scream I kept hurling inside my skull. Hey, LPME. PLAs? Don't lie to Ashim KLME. But my body offered no sign. Another sigh from her. Your husband told us you might not make it through the night? She murmured. But your vitals look much stronger than he said. Strange. Strange. The word echoed through me. She moved toward the monitor on the wall. A soft beep. A sharp inhale. Oh, someone left the room camera on. My pulse spiked. She stepped closer, squinting at the screen, then leaning in to examine the timestamp. Wasn't supposed to be recording at this hour. She tapped the monitor again. A frown. Someone must have forgotten to disable it. Forgotten. No, someone had pretended to disable it. I wanted to weep with relief. The nurse pressed a few buttons, replaying the footage. Her brows furrowed. She jumped slightly, covering her mouth. Oh my God. She leaned closer. What were you two doing in here? She whispered to herself. This isn't right. She rewound again. Watched. Again. Watched. Her breath became shaky. "This needs to go to the charge nurse," she said under her breath. "Or the supervisor. Or..." The door handle rattled. The nurse flinched so hard her clipboard fell to the floor. "Hello," she said nervously, stepping back. But nobody entered. A voice echoed from the hallway. "Everything okay in there?" a security guard called. "Yes," she responded quickly. "Just dropped something." My heartbeat thundered. Security. Another layer of protection. Another witness. The nurse, shaken, picked up the clipboard and turned back to me. "Honey," she whispered, touching my arm, "I don't know if you can hear me, but something's very wrong. And I'm going to report it." My entire soul leaned into her words. She stepped away, reaching for the call button. But then her phone buzzed. She frowned, reading a message. Her whole body stiffened. Footsteps hurried past the hallway, whispering, hushed tones. Then another message pinged. Her face drained of color. She swallowed, hands trembling. I have to go check something," she whispered. "I'll be right back. Don't worry." But her voice no longer carried the warmth from before. It carried fear. She hurried out of the room, closing the door behind her. Her footsteps faded down the hall, not toward the charge nurse's station, but away from it. Something had changed. Something or someone had stopped her. The silence returned, thicker this time, like a warning. My hope flickered, but didn't die. Someone had seen the footage. Someone knew. But had they answered to their conscience or to Daniel? I listened for any clue, any hint. But only the hum of machines filled the room, steady and indifferent. Then, out of nowhere, faint static buzzed. The room camera's tiny indicator light, which had been dark before, blinked red. Someone had turned it back on, not off. On. A voice filtered through the system speaker, deep, steady, familiar. One I had not heard in almost 7 years. "Anna," it whispered, "if you can hear me, hold on. I'm coming." My blood froze. I knew that voice. Detective Marcus Hale, my brother's closest friend, the man who had once told me, half joking, half serious, "If you ever feel unsafe, call me before you call 911. But I hadn't called him. He had found me on his own. And from the hard edge in his voice, I knew exactly what that meant. Someone had already discovered the camera footage. Someone had already betrayed Daniel's plan. And someone, Detective Hale, was already on his way. Detective Hale's voice faded with a soft crackle from the speaker, but the impact of it stayed vibrating inside me like a second heartbeat. I hadn't heard that voice since my brother's funeral. He had held my shoulders while I cried, promising he would always keep an eye on me. I thought it was something people said in grief, a kindness, a temporary tether to keep me from drowning. I didn't know he meant it literally. The room grew still again, but this time the silence felt charged, like the air before a storm. Somewhere in the hospital, Detective Hale was pushing through doors, demanding answers, pulling at the same threads Daniel and Eva thought they had tied neatly around my neck. I imagined the look on Daniel's face when those threads began to unravel. My pulse steadied, just a little. Enough to remind me that I wasn't as helpless as my frozen body suggested. The doorknob rattled. My breath would have caught if I'd been able to move. Was it Hale? The nurse? Security? Or the door creaked open. I didn't need my eyes to know who entered. The faint clacking of heels. The soft swish of expensive perfume. A forced sigh meant for an audience. Eva. Of course, she stepped closer, whispering my name with a mock tenderness that made my stomach twist. Anna, poor Anna. Her chair scraped across the floor as she sat beside me. you know, she murmured, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. You've always been in the way. Even before you got sick, Daniel deserved someone who actually supported him, someone who didn't question him, supported him or funded him. Her fingers trailed lightly over my cheek, cold as a scalpel. I tried to be patient. She continued, I really did, but you didn't take the hints. You didn't step aside. You kept living. She laughed softly, quiet but vicious. And here you are, halfway to the grave and still ruining things. My heart pounded so loud I was sure she could hear it. She paused, listening to the monitor, eyes narrowing. You know, she said slowly, leaning in, sometimes comatose patients show spikes when people talk. That doesn't mean anything. Of course, but still. She reached for my wrist. Her fingers brushed my skin. It would be easier for everyone if this ended tonight. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. The machines hummed. And then her phone buzzed violently. Eva jerked her hand away, irritation flashing across her voice. What now? She muttered, tapping the screen. She read the message, stopped breathing for 2 full seconds. Who the hell? Her voice cracked. She read again. No. Her heels hit the floor in rapid staccato as she stood abruptly pacing. This can't be real. That camera was OFF. Daniel said it was off. Another message. Her breath hitched. Oh God, who sent this? Her fingers trembled. Then, with a sudden sharp inhale, she bolted for the door. The second she left, the room felt brighter, even though the lights hadn't changed. Whatever message she received, it had struck her like a knife. I clung to that thought, repeating it in my mind. Someone has the footage. Someone is fighting for me. Someone is coming. Minutes slithered by. Distant voices rose sharp and frantic. A door slammed somewhere down the hall, running footsteps. A command barked by a male voice I couldn't quite make out. Then my door swung open again. Hard, not Eva, not Daniel. A man stepped in, not hurried, not uncertain, but with the kind of presence that fills a room before his voice even does. Detective Marcus Hale. I couldn't see him, but I knew it was him. The steady boot falls. The clipped exhale. The rustle of the badge around his neck as he approached my bedside. Anna, he said softly, with a warmth Daniel never managed. I'm here. The room camera clicked softly, adjusting, recording. He placed a hand gently on my arm. You're awake, he murmured. I know you are. I saw the vital spike when I spoke through the monitor. A tear slid beneath my closed eyelid, though it didn't fall. Just sat there collecting, held in place by the paralysis. His hand tightened protectively. You're safe now, he whispered. Safe. I wanted to believe that word. I wanted to let it wrap around me like a blanket, but terror still pulsed through my veins because I knew Daniel wouldn't let go of his plan without a fight. Hale glanced toward the door. They're panicking, he said. Eva's already cracked. Someone sent her a copy of the footage before I arrived. She tried to delete records in the hallway system. Security stopped her. I felt a flicker of triumph. And Daniel. Hale's voice hardened. He's denying everything. Says you're dying naturally. Says he's grieving. Says he has no idea how the camera malfunctioned. Footsteps echoed outside the room. Hale turned sharply toward the sound. Stay behind me, he whispered, though he knew I couldn't move. The door began to open, too cautiously, too slowly. Daniel slipped inside. He didn't know Hale was there, not until the detective spoke. Evening, Daniel. Daniel froze, there are moments in life when a person's soul steps out into the open, stripped of lies, stripped of charm. Daniel stood there, silent, caught between fear and rage. "Detective Hale," he said finally, trying to smile. What a surprise. "Anna, my wife, she had an episode. I came to check." "That's interesting," Hale cut in. "Because according to hospital security, you told them to give you privacy tonight. And according to the room camera, you and your assistant were doing something entirely different." Daniel's throat bobbed. "She can't understand you," he said coldly. "Save the theatrics." "Oh, she understands," Hale replied. "She's been conscious for hours." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She can't move," he hissed. "She can't confirm anything?" "That's where you're wrong." Hale reached into his jacket. Daniel stiffened. Hale didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a tablet. The screen lit up. Daniel's face appeared on the recording. Daniel's own voice filled the room. "Order the coffin. She won't last the night." Daniel lunged for the tablet. Hale stepped back easily. "You idiot," Daniel spat. "You don't know what she's done." "What she's done," Hale said calmly, "is survive you." Daniel's mask cracked. His rage boiled to the surface. He grabbed the chair beside the bed and hurled it at Hale. The crash shook the room. Hale dodged, slamming Daniel against the wall. Daniel fought like a wild animal, clawing, kicking, furious. But Hale was trained, precise, immovable. Within seconds, Daniel's wrists were pinned behind his back. "You can't prove anything?" Daniel screamed. "We already have," Hale said, securing his arms with zip ties. "The camera didn't just record your voice. It recorded your intent." Daniel struggled, screaming curses, threats, pure venom. But Hale didn't flinch. He glanced back at me. "Anna, it's over," he said softly. "You did your part. Now let me finish mine." Daniel's screams echoed down the hallway, even after Hale dragged him out of my room. For a moment, the hospital felt suspended in a strange, vibrating silence, the kind that comes after a lightning strike, when the world holds its breath, unsure if the danger has passed or merely shifted shape. My heart pounded unevenly, every thud echoing in my skull. I couldn't see the hallway, couldn't see where Hale had taken Daniel, but the tension clinging to the air told me everything was far from over. Seconds or minutes later, time was a shapeless fog in my paralysis. The door opened again. Soft footsteps approached. These were not Hale's heavy, decisive boots. They weren't Daniel's frantic lunges. They weren't Eva's sharp heels. They were careful, gentle. A woman's voice spoke, trying to hide her unease. "Mrs. Hale, I'm Nurse Riley. I'm here to check on you." She approached my bed, and I sensed her studying me, the tremor in her breath revealing how rattled she was. She lifted the tablet Hale had left on the chair and stared at the paused footage of Daniel and Eva discussing my coffin. "Oh my God," she whispered. "This is real. You heard all of this, didn't you?" Her fingers brushed the edge of the tablet, her voice breaking. "You must have been terrified. If I could have cried, I would have cried then. Instead, my body remained an unresponsive vessel holding a storm." Nurse Riley squeezed my hand gently, a reassurance that I felt only as pressure, not warmth, and stepped away. "I'm going to find the supervising physician," she said. "You're not staying in this room alone? Not after what I just saw." But before she reached the door, it flew open so violently, the handle dented the wall behind it. Eva stood there. Her hair was wild, her face streaked with mascara, eyes glowing with a manic desperation. A predator cornered, not ready to surrender, not ready to accept defeat. "Nurse Riley," She said through clenched teeth, "I need a moment alone with my patient." Her voice trembled with barely contained hysteria. Riley backed up slowly. "You don't work this floor, Eva." And after what I said, "Leave." Eva snapped, stepping fully into the room and closing the door behind her. Riley hesitated, looking between me and Eva, torn. Eva's smile was thin, stretched, unnatural. "Don't worry," she said. "I just need to say goodbye." Riley took a step back, torn between duty and fear. Then she fled. The door shut. I was alone again. Alone with Eva. Her heels clicked across the floor, each slicing through the silence. She came closer, leaning over my paralyzed body with the look of someone who had snapped the final thread holding her sanity. "You ruined everything," she whispered, teeth clenched. "You weren't supposed to hear anything. You weren't supposed to wake up again." Her fingers brushed my cheek, not affectionately, but with the coldness of someone confirming whether a threat still breathed. "You don't understand," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Daniel was supposed to be mine, not yours. He promised me everything and you just stayed alive." She laughed softly, the sound hollow. "That's your problem, Anna. You never know when to let go." Her hand moved toward my IV line. No. My heartbeat spiked. The monitor beeped faster. She hesitated, looking at the numbers flashing wildly across the screen. "Oh, look," she said with a twisted smile. "You can hear me?" She grasped the IV line. "This won't hurt," she whispered. "You'll just drift off. And when they find you, they'll call it natural, just like we planned." My mind screamed. My muscles refused to answer. She began to pull. The beep of the monitor went erratic. A crash exploded behind her. The door slammed open with such force the hinges rattled. "Estepadawef raw!" Hale's voice roared. Eva jumped, releasing the IV line, spinning around like a cornered animal. Her eyes widened as she saw the detective, his badge visible, his expression carved from stone. How did you?" she stammered. "You really thought you could delete hospital logs?" Hale snapped, stepping toward her. "You thought you could wipe your name from access entries?" Eva staggered back, shaking her head frantically. "It wasn't me, it was Daniel. It was all him. You ordered the coffin," Hale said coldly. "You threatened her. You discussed the timeline. You nearly tampered with medical equipment." Eva crumbled to the floor, sobbing, covering her face. "I didn't mean to hurt her," she cried. I just wanted him to choose me." Hale pulled out handcuffs. Eva screamed. It wasn't fear. It wasn't guilt. It was the sound of a person watching the life they built on deceit collapse into dust. He cuffed her wrists, reciting her charges calmly as she wailed. Attempted murder, conspiracy, tampering with medical equipment, harassment, fraud. Eva kicked, shrieked, begged. But Hale didn't waver. He dragged her toward the door, her cries echoing like sirens. Before leaving, he looked back at me. "Hang on, Anna," he said softly. "I'm not done saving you yet." The door closed behind them. Silence returned. But this time, it wasn't suffocating. It was a silence filled with possibility. Life, survival, justice. Somewhere down the hall, Daniel was still screaming at officers. Somewhere else, Eva's sobs bounced off sterile walls. And here, in my room, for the first time since I lost control of my body, I felt something. A twitch in my thumb, small, barely noticeable, but real. My body was waking. And I wasn't done fighting. Not yet. The twitch in my thumb was so small that if I hadn't been trapped in my own body for hours, I might have missed it. But to me, it felt like an earthquake, a crack in the wall of paralysis, a doorway back to the world, a reminder that the body Daniel wanted buried was not finished fighting. I waited, concentrated, pushed my mind deeper into that faint spark of movement. Another twitch, this time intentional, not a phantom impulse, not a spasm. A real command slipping through the neural fog. My heart surged with hope. The machines beside me beeped in agreement. For the first time since I fell into this terrifying stillness, I felt a shift, not just in my muscles, but in fate itself. Voices erupted in the hallway, high, frantic, competing. A woman sobbing, a man yelling orders, footsteps running. Daniel and Eva's world was falling apart at the seams, and every unraveling thread was one more stitch sewn into my survival. Then came Hale's voice again, firm, measured, slicing through the chaos. Secure him. Don't let him near this room. We're not taking chances. It felt like a blanket settling over me, as if safety had taken physical form and draped itself across my chest. The door opened gently this time, not kicked in, not slammed. Detective Hale stepped inside, breathing hard but composed. His eyes scanned me instantly, checking my breathing, my monitors, my IV line, as if memorizing every detail for signs of tampering. "You're holding strong," he said softly, stepping closer. "Better than anyone expected." His gaze fell to my hand. My thumb, still, perfectly still. But he leaned in anyway. "Try again," he whispered. I tried, and there it was, a tremor. Small, but unmistakable. Hale's face changed. It was subtle, but the relief was unmistakable. It broke through his professional calm, softening something behind his stern eyes. "You're coming back," he murmured. "Good. That's exactly what we need." He sat beside my bed, lowering his voice. "You've been through hell, Anna. But listen carefully. The doctors will want to run tests. They'll want to understand the paralysis. But before that, before any of it, you're getting moved to a secure room with police posted outside the door." He leaned closer, as if offering a silent promise. "No one's laying a finger on you again." The words wrapped around my fear and squeezed it smaller. A nurse entered, different one this time, younger, nervous, but determined. "Hale," she asked, glancing at me. "The chief wants an update." Hale stood. "I'll be there in a moment. I'm not leaving her alone until the transfer team arrives." The nurse nodded and left. He turned back to me, lowering his voice again. "I know you can hear me," he said. "So I'm telling you this now, before the lawyers start twisting stories." He pulled a chair closer. "Daniel is pretending he was manipulated, that Eva plotted everything. He's blaming her for everything caught on camera." Of course he was. I felt the faintest curl of anger tighten inside me. "Coward," Hale continued. "Unfortunately for him, the camera also caught him saying he'd finished the job. And that's attempted murder, plain and simple." My pulse quickened. Hale noticed. "Good," he said softly. "Let that anger work for you." He leaned back slightly, studying me like a silent conversation was unfolding between us. "You're strong, you know. Most people in your condition wouldn't be fighting this hard. If I could have smiled, I would have." Suddenly, a crash sounded in the hall. A male voice roared, "Einen idet till sie ER." "Cease, Emma, wife." Daniel. Even paralyzed, my whole body recoiled. Hale stiffened instantly, hand moving to his radio. "Do not let him through that corridor," he ordered. "I want 2 officers at the intersection and 1 at each stairwell. He doesn't take a single step my direction." Through the tiny sliver of an open door, Daniel's voice echoed again, now cracking, now desperate.
to me, am I you understand?
Misunderstanding, the word struck me like a slap. Planning my coffin was a misunderstanding. Choosing satin lining for my burial was a misunderstanding. Tampering with my care, poisoning my trust, plotting my death, all misunderstandings. The heart monitor spiked sharply. Hale turned back to me, voice calm again. Don't listen to him. He's unraveling because he knows he's lost. 2 officers dragged Daniel past the doorway. He kicked, thrashed, spit venom.
I met our husband.
Yow, you can't eat cake, EAP, me, Ephraim Shaw. He tried to twist around to see me. For half a second, his eyes met mine, or rather, met my motionless eyelids, my frozen body. The woman he thought had finally been silenced. But something in my stillness must have shifted because his expression changed. His face twisted, not in triumph, but in terror, as if he sensed that I wasn't dying, that I wasn't silent, that I wasn't his victim anymore. You, he stuttered, voice cracking. You're awake, aren't you? Hale shoved him further down the hall. Save it for the interrogation room. Daniel's voice faded. The silence that followed felt different than before. Not suffocating, not final. It felt like a door had opened somewhere inside me. Because, for the first time since falling into paralysis, I felt movement return to my fingers, just a slight curl. But real? Hale turned back toward me at that exact moment. He froze. Then, slowly, his eyes softened. You're coming back, he whispered. Good, we're going to need your voice. He pressed the call button. Get the neurologist. She's waking up. Waking up. Waking up. The 2 words echoed through my mind like a promise. Because now I understood something I hadn't before. Daniel didn't nearly kill me. He woke me. And I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The neurologist arrived faster than I expected. An older woman with silver hair pulled into a tight bun, glasses perched low on her nose, and the kind of calm presence that suggested she'd seen far too many miracles and tragedies to be startled by anything in between. But even she paused when she saw my fingers move. Well, she murmured, stepping closer. That's promising. Her hands were gentle as she examined me, lifting my wrist, watching the slight flutter beneath my skin. She tested my reflexes, my pupils, the stiffness in my limbs. She's not fully back yet, the doctor said to Hale, but she's close. The paralysis is loosening. Another hour, maybe 2, and she should regain partial control. Hale nodded, relief softening the tension in his jaw. Good. She'll need her voice soon. The doctor frowned faintly. Detective, whatever is happening here, I hope you understand my patient's recovery has to come first. Oh, I understand, Hale said quietly, which is exactly why I'm keeping her alive. Those words settled into the room like a heavy truth. The doctor nodded once and continued her exam. You're fighting, she told me gently. I can see it in your vitals. Just keep doing that. Don't let go. If only she knew letting go was the one thing I was not capable of anymore. When she finally left, the room felt quieter, the air lighter. Hale stayed by my side, one hand resting on the edge of the bed as if anchoring himself to the moment. You know, he said softly, your brother would have been proud. He always told me you were stronger than people realized. My heart tightened at the mention of my brother. It had been years since I allowed myself to think about him deeply, because grief, when ignored, becomes a quiet tenant in the home of your heart. Hearing Hale speak of him brought that old ache back, but this time it wasn't hollow. It felt like strength. Footsteps approached the door. Hale stiffened, turning sharply. But it wasn't Daniel or Eva. It was the hospital administrator, an elegant woman in a navy suit, clutching a tablet against her chest with trembling fingers. Behind her stood 2 members of hospital security. "Detective Hale," she said, her voice tight. "We've reviewed the footage." Her eyes flicked to me, softening with immediate sympathy. "I don't know how we missed this," she whispered. "This should never have happened on our grounds." Hale crossed his arms. "It did. Now we deal with it." The administrator nodded and pulled up the footage on her tablet. Even muted, the image of Daniel and Eva standing over my bed, discussing the coffin, was enough to make her jaw clench. "I've already called legal," she said. "This matter is being escalated to the highest level. Our priority now is Mrs. Hale's safety. I've arranged for a secure transfer room on the top floor," Hale replied. 2 officers stationed at the door at all times. Security nodded in affirmation. "Good," she said. "Because that man," her voice trembled in anger, "had the audacity to claim you were signing your property away tonight." The room seemed to tilt. Property, house, inheritance. The pieces clicked into a picture so sharp it hurt. Everything I owned, everything my parents left me, was what Daniel wanted. I had always known he married me for comfort. I just didn't realize he intended to bury me in exchange for convenience. Hale's voice cut through my thoughts. "He won't get near her again," he promised. Another twitch shot through my hand. Then my wrist. My breath hitched. The movement was visible now, even without sharp concentration. Hale's eyes lit with cautious hope. "There you go," he whispered. "Come back. Come back to us." The administrator excused herself to finalize paperwork. Security left to position officers. Soon, it was just me and Hale again. He sat down, leaning closer, speaking softly as if telling a secret. "You know, I never liked him. First time I met him, something felt off. Your brother felt it too. He told me, watch him. He's charming in all the wrong ways." My heart squeezed. My brother. My protector. "He saw it long before I did. But you loved him." Hale continued. "So we stayed quiet. People in love don't listen to warnings. Even smart ones." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I should have been more present after your brother died. I should have checked on you more." The guilt in his voice was real, not performative, not strategic, real. If I'd been able to move, I would have grabbed his hand to tell him he wasn't responsible for my marriage or the monster hiding inside it, but all I could do was listen. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. Hale jumped to his feet. "What now?" he muttered, stepping toward the door. Before he reached it, 2 officers dragged in a man I had never seen, a hospital orderly, thin, pale, shaking violently. "We found him tampering with the side entrance," one officer said. "Trying to let someone in." Hale's expression turned to stone. Who was he letting in? The orderly swallowed hard. He said he was her husband. He stammered. He said she wasn't safe with the police, that he needed to get her out discreetly. Hale inhaled sharply through his nose. "Where is he now?" The orderly pointed down the hall. "He went outside, said he'd come back through the emergency exit once I disabled the alarm." My heart stopped. Daniel wasn't done. Even handcuffed, even restrained, he was still orchestrating ways to get to me. Hale grabbed his radio. "Al units, lock the east wing. Marcus, I want eyes on every exit, every stairwell." His boots pounded toward the hallway. He turned back for 1 second, his gaze meeting mine. "Don't move," he said. "And don't be afraid, I'm coming back." He disappeared down the hallway. The door shut behind him. The room felt colder, not because of the air conditioning, because somewhere in the labyrinth of hospital corridors, my husband, my would-be murderer, was loose. And he was coming, not for reconciliation, not for forgiveness, not for love, but for the one thing he still believed he could control: me. And this time, I wasn't helpless. Because as the room settled into its tense stillness, I felt the full length of my arm twitch, slow, sluggish, but undeniable. The paralysis was breaking, and I was waking up just in time. The room felt like a lung holding its breath. Every shadow stretched longer. Every hum of machinery sharpened. Even the steady beeping of my monitor sounded different, faster, tighter, as if echoing the tension building in the hallway outside. Daniel was out there, loose, desperate, unpredictable, and I was lying in a bed, half paralyzed, half awake, clutching tiny fragments of movement like weapons. I wasn't yet strong enough to lift. But for the first time since this nightmare began, my fear didn't swallow me whole. It sharpened me, focused me. My fingers twitched again, this time curling enough that the bedsheet shifted beneath them. The sound was tiny, almost silent. But to me, it was thunder. Another tremor ran through my arm, a small one, but bigger than before. The paralysis was melting like ice beneath morning sun, and I needed it to melt faster because I could feel something in the air, something heavy and terrible, that told me Daniel would not wait quietly behind police lines while Hale hunted him. He was coming. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Slow, measured, intentional. Not Hale's heavy stride, not the rushed patter of nurses. Someone moving like they didn't want to be heard. Someone stalking. I held my breath even though I couldn't control much else. A shadow slipped under my doorframe. Then the handle turned. Softly, carefully, I prayed for Hale, for security, for anyone but him. The door opened an inch, then another. A whisper of cold air crept into the room. I couldn't turn my head to see, but I could feel the shift, the way fear prickled up, my spine like static against skin. The way instinct screamed that someone who should not be here had stepped into my space. Then, Anna, his voice. Daniel, calm. Terrifyingly calm, the kind of calm that only appeared when rage folded itself into something sharper. He closed the door behind him with a soft click, shutting out the world. Well, he said, stepping further into the room, isn't this interesting? I felt him move closer. Every step sank into my bones like weights. You ruined everything, he murmured. Do you have any idea what you've done? He walked to my bedside, his shadow rolling over me like a dark tide. The police, he scoffed. That pathetic detective. You think he can protect you? His breath brushed my cheek as he leaned over me. You think you're safe. For the first time since he entered, anger rose hotter than fear. My fingers twitched. My hand lifted a fraction, small, but enough that he saw it. He froze. His eyes widened. Oh, he whispered, voice cracking. You are waking up. He stared at my hand as if it personally betrayed him. You weren't supposed to come back, he hissed. You weren't supposed to hear anything? He grabbed my wrist with cold fingers, squeezing hard enough to hurt, even through numb muscles. You always ruin things for me, he snarled quietly. Even at the end, the monitor beside me beeped faster. Faster, faster. He looked at it and smirked, scared. Good. You should be. I could feel my breath trembling. My mind screamed for Hale. For security? For anyone. But no footsteps came. Daniel leaned closer until his forehead almost touched mine. You're going to die tonight, he whispered. And this time, I'll make sure there's no detective charging in to save you. He reached for my IV line. Not to pull it, to inject something. My vision blurred with panic. I tried to move, tried to scream, tried to do anything. And then the door exploded open. Daniel jerked back, spinning around. Hale stood in the doorway, gun drawn, eyes burning with fury.
I still blew everyone off on. Ow!
He thundered. Daniel let out a sharp breath, half laugh, half despair. You just don't stop, do you? Hale stepped forward, voice low and lethal. You should have run when you had the chance. Daniel raised his hands slowly, palms outward like an animal trying to decide whether to flee or attack. She's lying, he said. She wants to frame me. Hale cut him off. Save it. I saw you on the hallway camera. Daniel's face twisted. He lunged. Not at Hale, at me. Like a man hoping to destroy proof before he's dragged away. But he didn't make it 2 steps. Hale tackled him to the ground so hard the bed shook. A chair clattered over. My monitor screamed in alarm as adrenaline shot through me. The 2 men struggled violently, grunts, curses, the slap of bodies hitting tile. Daniel fought like a cornered predator, wild and ruthless. Hale fought like a man who had everything to lose. His fists connected. Daniel howled. Security flooded into the room like a tidal wave. It took 3 officers to pin my husband. 3. They cuffed him roughly. Daniel spat, snarled, kicked, but the fight bled out of him. He looked at me, his eyes bloodshot, wild. You think you've won? He screamed. You think this is over? I'll make sure everyone knows you. Hale slammed him against the floor. Shut your mouth. Daniel's voice cracked. Anna, please. Hale hauled him upright by the cuffs. Don't you dare say her name. Daniel screamed as they dragged him out of the room. The second the door slammed shut behind them, the entire world exhaled. Hale turned to me, chest heaving, sweat trickling down his temple. He stepped closer, gripping the bed railing. His voice trembled, not in fear, but in relief. You're okay? He whispered. He's gone. He's finally gone. My fingers twitched again. Then my hand lifted, barely. But enough? Hale's eyes widened, softening with something almost like joy. That's it, he said, his voice breaking. Come back to me. I tried again. My arm moved. Slow, weak, but real. Hale swallowed hard. You're not just surviving anymore, he whispered. You're winning. For the first time since this nightmare began, I believed him. Because Daniel wasn't the one in control anymore. I was. And I was waking up to claim everything he tried to steal, including my life. The room felt different now. Not like a place I was trapped in. Not like a cage. More like a battlefield after the enemy has been dragged away, bloody shaken, but mine again. The oxygen hissed softly beside me, steady and rhythmic, like a guide leading me back into my own body. Detective Hale remained by my side, shoulders rising and falling with deep breaths as he forced himself calm. He wiped a smear of blood from his jaw, Daniel's, not his, and shook his head slightly, as if still processing the violence of the last few minutes. I should have been faster, he murmured, guilt flickering across his face. He got too close. Never again. He looked at me with a protective intensity I hadn't felt from anyone in years. My fingers twitched again, this time curling inward far enough to wrinkle the bedsheet. Hale froze. He whispered, You're fighting your way back. I tried to swallow, and for the first time, my throat responded. Rough, slow, but it moved. He noticed. He leaned in. Anna, can you hear me clearly? Blink if you can. A command, something I could attempt. With every ounce of strength I could gather, I pushed at the heaviness weighing my eyelids down. They fluttered just barely, but enough that Hale saw it. His jaw tightened with emotion. Good, Anna. Keep going. The door opened softly, and the neurologist returned with 2 nurses and a portable monitor. The moment she saw the movement in my hand, her brows shot upward. Well now, she said, setting down her equipment. That's excellent progress. She checked my vital signs again, nodding thoughtfully. Her neural responses are accelerating, she told Hale. She's breaking through faster than expected. The trauma likely triggered the freeze response. But now that the threat has been removed, she gestured toward my hand. Her system is rebooting. Rebooting. Yes, that was exactly how it felt. Like lights flickering back on in a house after a storm. The neurologist turned toward me. Anna, I'm going to lift your arm slightly. Don't panic. I felt her fingers under my wrist. Then I felt something else, my muscles tightening in reaction. Not strong, but intentional. The doctor nodded. She's regaining voluntary control. It will come back in waves. Hale asked the question that had been burning on his tongue. When will she be able to speak? The neurologist hesitated. Hard to say. Could be minutes. Could be hours. When the brain is overwhelmed, speech pathways wake last. But she'll get there. Hale nodded, though worry still shadowed his expression. He wasn't just invested as an officer. He was invested as someone who cared. Deeply. The nurses left to prepare the secure room on the top floor. The neurologist followed after giving Hale instructions and a reassuring pat on my leg. Soon the room was quiet again. Just me and Hale. He sat down, elbows on his knees, rubbing his face. I've seen a lot of evil in my career, he whispered. But what he tried to do to you, that's something I won't forget. He looked at me again, voice thickening. When your brother died, I promised him I'd look out for you. I failed at that for a long time, but not tonight. He shook his head at himself, almost ashamed. Did you know he used to talk about you nonstop? He said softly. He'd go on and on, how you were the bravest of the 2 of you, how you always forgave too easily, how you had a way of finding light even when things were dark. My throat tightened, not from paralysis, but from memory. My brother's laugh, his hand squeezing mine. His promise that I deserved someone worthy of me. Someone who wouldn't dim the fire he said I carried. He would have hated Daniel. He would have recognized him instantly. Hale leaned closer. He would have wanted you to fight. And you are. He exhaled long and slow. Then he looked toward the door. They're moving Daniel into police custody now, he said. He's going to be charged tonight. And Eva, she's already confessed to tampering with the IV and plotting with him. My pulse steadied. Justice was coming. Not fast, not gentle, but coming. Hale turned back toward me, his voice dropping to a near whisper. You're safe now, Anna. Safe. Such a fragile word. But for the first time, it didn't feel like a lie. A sudden spark shot through my throat. A faint sound escaped my lips, barely audible, more breath than voice, but it startled even me. Hale jerked forward. Anna, I tried again. A rough exhale, a broken syllable trapped in fog. Ack. It wasn't a word, not yet, but it was sound. Hale's eyes softened with so much relief, I thought he might break. You're getting there, he whispered. Take your time. I fought again, gathering every shard of strength. My mouth opened. This time, a faint rasp escaped. Hale leaned in, breath caught. Were those letters? A name? A warning? A beginning? He cupped his hand gently around mine. Try again, he whispered. I'm right here. I inhaled a shaky, uneven breath. My chest expanded. My throat vibrated. I pushed the sound forward. H. Ollie. It was broken, hoarse, barely recognizable, but unmistakable. His eyes widened. His lips parted. He wasn't expecting my first word to be his name. Emotion tightened his expression: shock, relief, guilt, something deeper tangled in all of it. Yeah, he whispered, voice thick. It's me. I'm here. Another breath. Another effort. This time my voice was even softer, but clearer. Thank you. Hale exhaled sharply, almost disbelieving. He had saved me, and I had said so. He swallowed, forcing composure back into his voice. You're welcome, Anna. But this isn't over. His tone changed, sharper, more urgent. Daniel's not the only thing you need to testify about. My eyes fluttered. He leaned forward. There's more, he said. Much more. Things you don't know yet. A chill slid across my skin. But Hale wasn't finished. We found something in his car, he whispered. Something in his car? My pulse quickened. Hale lowered his voice even further, as if the walls themselves might be listening. And once you're strong enough, you're going to need to see it. Hale's words hung in the air like a blade suspended above me, silent, sharp, waiting to drop. We found something in his car. My heartbeat thudded inside my ribcage, each beat louder than the last. My fingers twitched again, this time curling around Hale's hand. Not fully, not strongly, but enough to say, tell me. Hale leaned in, his breath steady, but weighted with something darker than anything he had told me so far. You deserve the truth, he murmured, but I'm warning you, it isn't easy to hear. My throat tightened. I managed the smallest nod, my muscles shaking from the effort. Hale sat back slightly, bracing himself. When we searched Daniel's car, he said slowly, we found a second phone, one he'd hidden, one Eva didn't even know existed. The room seemed to shrink around me, had been recording things. Hale continued, conversations, meetings, plans, not just about you, but about your assets, your will, your medical records. Something cold slithered through me. He wasn't acting on impulse. Hale said, he wasn't overwhelmed. This wasn't stress. Hale paused, jaw tightening. This was organized, months of preparation, maybe longer. A tremor ran up my arm. Hale noticed. You okay? I blinked slowly, the only answer I could give. He let out a breath. Okay, I'll go slow. He reached into his jacket and retrieved a small notebook, leather bound, worn around the edges, the kind of thing someone kept close for years. Daniel kept this in his glove compartment, Hale said. Your name is on almost every page. My stomach turned. Hale opened the notebook, flipping to a page marked with a folded corner. This, he said, tapping the paper, is the first entry we found. He began to read aloud. Anna will never leave me on her own. Too moral. Too scared. I need a better plan. A faint rasp escaped my throat. Hale continued. If I play the loving husband long enough, she'll let her guard down. Once she's comfortable, I'll move forward, move forward. Those two words felt like acid seeping through my veins. Hale's eyes darkened. It gets worse. He flipped another page. Her mother's inheritance should have come to me. I'll fix that next time she updates her will. My mother. He had stood at her funeral with tears in his eyes. Tears. Fake. A sound escaped me, broken, breathy, but unmistakably a noise of pain. Hale lowered the notebook immediately. Anna, he said softly, you don't have to hear more right now. But I did. I needed to. I forced my fingers to curl again, stronger this time, and tapped twice against the sheets. Continue. Hale hesitated, then nodded. He turned a few more pages and found another marked entry. This one, he said quietly, is from 3 weeks before your hospitalization. My lungs stalled mid-breath. 3 weeks. Before I collapsed. Before the doctor said my body failed. Before the paralysis. Hale read, if the medication doesn't work fast enough, Eva says there are other ways, but it has to look natural. No questions. No investigation, medication. My mind reared. The nausea I'd felt for days. The dizziness, the fatigue. The night Daniel insisted on making me tea to help me sleep. My monitor spiked, beeping rapidly. Hale pressed his hand to mine, grounding me. It's okay. You're here. You survived. Tears, hot, stinging, well behind my closed eyes. He flipped to the last marked page. This one was dated the day before you were admitted, Hale said quietly. It confirms everything. He took a breath. Tomorrow is the best opportunity. Eva will change the charts. The doctor doesn't look too closely at her shifts. Once Anna's unresponsive, everything moves forward. The words hammered into me like blows. Unresponsive. They wanted me silent. They wanted me still. They wanted me dead. My body shook, small spasms that ran through my arms and shoulders, half trauma, half returning motor function. The neurologist had said recovery would come in waves. This one hit like a storm. Hale set the notebook aside and leaned closer, voice low, steady, firm. Anna, listen to me. His hand moved to my shoulder, steady and warm. You didn't collapse because your body failed. You collapsed because someone tried to make you fail. A shudder ripped through me. You were poisoned, Hale said softly. Not enough to kill you instantly. Enough to disorient. Enough to paralyze. Enough to make the doctors think it was neurological. He paused. Enough for Daniel to think he could bury you before anyone noticed. If I could have screamed, I would have. If I could have sobbed, I would have. But all I managed was a sharp inhale, my chest rising unevenly. Hale didn't look away. He didn't soften the truth. You didn't just escape a murder attempt, he said. You escaped a man who planned it down to the type of coffin he wanted to put you in. My entire arm lifted. Weak, shaky, but lifted. Hale's breath hitched. You're getting stronger, he whispered. Good. You'll need your strength. He glanced toward the door, lowering his voice even more. There's one more thing, he said. Something the officers found in the trunk of his car. My pulse quickened again. Hale leaned closer, his expression darkening in a way I had never seen on him before. When you're transferred to the secure room, he said, I'm going to show it to you, because after seeing it myself, he exhaled slowly. There is no doubt in my mind that Daniel wasn't planning to stop with you. A chill crept up my spine. Not stop, not with me. My breathing hitched. My fingers twitched violently. Hale placed a hand over mine. I know, he whispered. I know. You're scared. He swallowed. But you're also waking up. And once you're fully conscious, your testimony is going to bury him deeper than any coffin he picked out for you. My heart pounded. Faster. Clearer. Alive. Because I finally understood Daniel didn't just try to kill me. He had been planning a future. A future without me. And now I would live long enough to destroy every piece of that future. Hale hadn't told me everything. Not yet. I could see it in the way his eyes flicked toward the door, the way his jaw tightened every time the notebook's pages rustled, the way he hovered too close, like he was shielding me from something heavier than truth. but I was done being protected. My voice hadn't fully returned, but my hand, my stubborn, shaking hand, lifted again. I gripped his sleeve, fingers curling weakly into the fabric. "Tell me." Hale looked down at my trembling hand. His breath hitched, just a subtle, barely audible shift, but enough to reveal how much he wasn't ready to say. He pulled a chair closer, lowering himself until his face was level with mine. "Anna," he began carefully, "before I tell you what we found, I need you to understand something." His eyes softened with something like grief. "You weren't Daniel's first plan?" My pulse stumbled. "His first what?" Hale continued, voice low, steady, almost painfully gentle. "He started planning this long before your health declined, before your mother passed, before Eva even entered the picture. He ran a hand over his jaw. And the person he originally wrote about in these notes wasn't you." My chest tightened. I forced my fingers to twitch, questioning, urging. Hale nodded slowly, and then, with heartbreak in his eyes, he said, "I meant to target your brother first." The world tilted. Against the weight of paralysis, a tremor coursed through my entire arm. My monitor beeped sharply, registering the shock ripping through me. My brother, my best friend, my anchor, gone in a car crash that no one ever questioned. He documented everything, Hale said, his resentment, his jealousy, your brother's insurance policy, your family home, your inheritance. My lungs seized. Daniel had smiled at my brother's funeral. He had held my hand. He had said, "I'm here for you. Whatever you need," he had played the grieving brother-in-law. But the truth was so much darker. My body shook uncontrollably, small spasms, but driven not by recovery, but rage. Hale quickly reached for the controls and lowered the bed slightly, trying to steady me. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't want you to hear it now, but you needed to know the kind of man he really is." A faint sound escaped my throat, broken, guttural. "What?" I tried. The word dissolved on my tongue, but Hale understood anyway. "How did we confirm it?" He said, finishing the question for me. The second phone, he had voice memos, drafts of staged arguments, messages he planned to send from someone else's number, fake threats, all designed to make your brother's death look like someone else's fault or his own. The breath lodged in my lungs refused to move. "I never got the timing right," Hale added. "Your brother rarely drove the route Daniel planned. But the resentment never left the notebook. He just redirected it. To me, to my inheritance, to my life." My hand clenched the bed sheet, muscles twitching with revived fury. Hale didn't try to calm me this time. He let it burn. "You needed to understand why he didn't stop," Hale said quietly. "Why he kept pushing. Why he crossed every line." He leaned closer, voice thinning with controlled anger. "He was never going to let you live long enough to take control of your own life." The room fell into a heavy silence. And then, as if summoned by the truth's gravity, another tremor rolled through me. My other silence since the moment I fell unconscious twitched. And then again, Hale's eyes widened. "Anna," I lifted it, just an inch. But an inch felt like a mile. He stood instantly, his voice filled with something fierce and bright. "You're coming back fast. Your body's fighting with everything it has." I tried to swallow again, this time the action completed, rough and painful, but real. Hale moved closer. "We should get the neurologist. You're progressing." But before he could turn away, I forced my lips to move. My voice cracked, emerging as nothing more than a hoarse whisper. "Meant no." Hale froze. He leaned inches from me, eyes locked on my lips. "Anna, talk to me." My throat burned like fire as I pushed again. Slow, painful. But this time clearer. As to say the rest, Hale's expression changed. Surprise, hurt, respect. You want all of it? He said softly. I blinked once. Yes. He sat down again, closer now, urgency in his posture. There's one more thing we found, he said quietly. In the trunk. Something cold brushed my spine. Hale swallowed. We found a folder, hidden under a spare tire. Inside were copies of your medical files. Not the real ones. The ones Eva altered. He had been planning to switch them during your next checkup. My pulse surged. He wanted doctors to believe you were declining, Hale said. That your memory was failing. That you were unstable. So when the accident eventually happened, no one would question it. My breath shortened, turning sharp. He didn't just want you gone. Hale said, he wanted your death to look natural. A tear broke free from my eye, warm as it slid down the bridge of my nose. Hale reached up and gently wiped it away. You survived him, he whispered, and you're going to wake up. And when you do, you're going to destroy everything he built. My voice wavered back to life, thin but determined. Why, yes. Hale exhaled, relief flickering in his eyes. He squeezed my hand. You're ready for the secure room, he said. You're ready to finish this. As nurses returned with equipment, a stretcher, and security officers repositioned themselves at the door, I felt another wave of sensation spread through my limbs, returning strength, returning control, returning will. For the first time, I moved my head, a tiny tilt, but enough that Hale saw it. And the look that crossed his face, hope mixed with pride, told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a survivor waking up with a purpose. And Daniel's world was about to collapse far more violently than anything he planned for me. The stretcher rolled closer, its wheels whispering across the tile floor like an invitation to the next chapter of my life, one I had almost never lived to see. Nurses adjusted equipment, checked my IV, lifted the monitor's cords with practice care. The air shifted with their movement, stirring a faint breeze against my cheek. And I felt it, actual sensation, a soft brush of air, cool, real. My skin recognized it. My body was waking. Hale stepped to the side, giving the medical staff room, but his eyes never left me, not for a heartbeat, not for a breath. He watched my face, my hands, the subtle movement returning to me piece by piece. His jaw tightened with determination. Each time a new flicker of strength showed itself. You're almost there, he murmured. Keep coming back. One nurse offered a reassuring smile as she released the brakes on the stretcher. Mrs. Hale, we're transferring you to a secure room upstairs. Police will be stationed outside. No one gets in without clearance. Her tone was soft, but her eyes glimmered with fear and anger, fear for what almost happened, anger that it happened at all. Hale moved beside her. I'll accompany her. Of course, detective, the nurse replied. As they lifted me gently onto the stretcher, I felt my shoulders shift. Actual movement slight, but undeniable. The neurologist had said recovery would come in waves, and now the waves were coming faster. My head, still heavy as stone, tilted faintly toward Hale. He noticed instantly. You're improving by the minute, he whispered. That's good. We'll need your voice soon. For the first time, I wanted my voice, not just to speak, but to fight. The stretcher rolled through the hallway. Nurses parted. Doctors stared. Security tightened their formation around us. No one looked away. They all knew what had happened in room 6014. They all knew someone tried to bury a living woman. They all knew she was coming back to testify. As we passed the waiting area, I saw Eva, handcuffed to a chair, mascara streaked, shaking violently. She looked up, and when her eyes met mine, her entire face drained of color. Her lips parted, a silent plea, a silent apology, a silent fear. I didn't blink, not out of cruelty, but because blinking was still difficult. Hale glanced her direction, then leaned slightly toward me. "She's terrified of what you'll say once you're fully awake," he murmured. "Terrified for the first time in her life. Good." 2 officers flanked her. Another guard stepped in front of the stretcher. A controlled, protected escort. One Daniel would never break through again. As we rounded the corner, I heard a familiar voice erupt down the hall, ragged, vicious, barely human.
Let me exhale to air. Let me expiate.
Daniel! Even restrained, he was chaos personified. 2 officers wrestled him backward, but his voice carried like broken glass in the air.
"You don't understand. She's lying. That detective poisoned her against me.
You're all being manipulated." He fought like a man drowning, wild, furious, desperate. The stretcher paused, and one of the guards stepped between us, blocking his sight line. Hale, however, turned fully toward Daniel, voice low and ice sharp. "Your time's up." Daniel spit in his direction, face twisted with rage. "You think this is over, Hale? You think she'll wake up and just believe whatever you tell her?" Hale didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "She doesn't need me to tell her anything," he said quietly. "She heard you. Every word. And she survived you." Daniel's expression flickered, fear cracking through fury. He surged forward again, screaming my name. The guards dragged him away, his shouts fading behind closing doors, muffled walls, distance. My heart didn't race this time. It steadied, because his voice no longer controlled me. It no longer dictated the pace of my breath or the panic in my veins. It was fading, just like he would. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. The nurses guided the stretcher inside, while Hale held the door with one hand, his other resting gently, reassuringly, on the rail beside my arm. Inside the elevator, the world grew quiet again, a different quiet this time. Not suffocating, not dangerous, a quiet filled with potential. Hale looked at me, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're going to get your life back, Anna. And more than that, you're going to take back everything he tried to steal." A tiny sound escaped me, half breath, half voice. "Why, yes." He smiled, not broadly, not triumphantly, but with a warmth I hadn't seen directed at me in years. The elevator rose, floor by floor. With every passing moment, feeling returned, pins and needles in my legs, heat in my arms. A swallow that didn't hurt as much. My body was returning. My will had never left. When the doors opened, a brightly lit, quiet hallway greeted us. Fresh paint, clean floors, doors reinforced with hospital-grade security systems. A place designed for safety, my safety. The nurses rolled me forward while 2 officers opened the door to the secure suite. It was larger, warmer. Sunlight spilled from tall windows, even though the sky outside was still dark. A place meant for healing. Hale moved ahead, inspecting every corner, every shadow, every possible hiding place, not out of paranoia, but out of a promise to protect me, a promise that started years ago with my brother, a promise he was finally able to fulfill. As the stretcher stopped beside the bed, Hale turned toward me. His voice softened again. "We'll begin the full statement once you're strong enough. Till then, officers will be here. I'll check on you regularly." My lips parted. A whisper scraped free. "I go." He stepped closer. "I'm here. I safe." His expression warmed, deepened, softened in ways I didn't expect. Yes, he whispered. You're safe now. Another swallow, another spark in my throat. One final word fought its way out, trembling but true. Thank you. Hale exhaled slowly, his shoulders finally relaxing. You did the hard part, he murmured. You survived. He stepped back, letting the nurses settle me into the new bed. The sheets were warm, the lights soft, the monitors gentle. A place for a beginning, not an ending. As the door closed, sealing me inside a sanctuary built from survival, one truth rooted itself deep in my chest. Daniel chose my coffin, but I chose to live. And now I would rise to testify, to reclaim everything he stole, and to rebuild a life stronger than anything he ever imagined I'd be strong enough to survive.